Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Okay, well, I am not doing radio like everybody else does because that's not what I do. But Vincent is lost. We'll get him back on here in a moment. For May, I wanted to personally thank all of my friends for the kind of support I've been getting over the last month. It has been a challenge for me. I am literally under attack by something that I can't even name. It's so creepy. Everyone around me feels it, but nobody can pin it down. And everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. Vincent?
Hey, Rick.
Okay, there you are. Take over. I missed your laugh. Start with that.
Well, I got to tell you that I just connected. I was talking with Jason, and just as we were going on the air, a couple seconds later, boom, the internet went down.
And guess what? It did here at my same place, but it came back up again. It's interesting what's happening in the in our arena of technology. Everything is beginning to fail.
I got a message from Steve Elkins. He's a broadcaster on Republic Broadcasting. He's one of our instructors here at USA Prepares. And during the broadcast yesterday, I was talking about royalty with Guineith Isaacs, and then the next thing you know, we are disconnected, and he can't hear us. I mean, we went off the air. So very interesting that those kinds of things happen.
The thing that's bothering me is that I can't prove that it's intentional. And yet, the coincidences of when and how and why it happens is so alarming as to set off all kinds of warning bells that this isn't natural, something else is going on, and yet I would be hard-placed to prove anything. Now, I will tell you, that would be when you start noticing coincidences and you can't prove it, there's only one thing that's accountable for that, and that's called an artificial intelligent computer.
Yes. Okay, it looks like...
I'm chapter and verse. When you have synchronicity, are you becoming a paranoid? Yes. Are you becoming a paranoid because there's something else going on? Yes. Are you crazy? Yes. Are you being driven crazy? Yes. Why?
Well, I just want to let you know, class, that I'm back on the standard connection, the high-speed digital connection that we have. So, Jason, thank you so much for making all this happen. I'm going to disconnect from the telephone right now so that we can stay on the standard studio equipment that we use. Okay, so, class, if you'd like to call in, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933, telephone listen line 605-477-3249. And I wanted to let everyone know that today we will not be speaking doublespeak. We will not be using doublespeak. However, we will be talking about doublespeak for just a few minutes.
Yeah, make a note, everybody. We're doing this legit today.
Yes.
This is me saying it. I'm not going to doublespeak. I'm going to try to give you what is on my mind.
Very good. So here's Rick in class. I'd like to share this with you. And this today is 100% legitimate. We will not be doing anything to mislead you intentionally. We're going to tell you the truth. And the only time we will do doublespeak if we ever do it again, which I don't think we will let you know ahead of time, before, during, and while. So this is legitimate. And in the United States, there's a company called the American Broadcasting Company, ABC, as you know it. There's another one called National Broadcasting Company, NBC. There's another one called CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System. So those are the original big three. Well, there's another company in Canada, and the name that they use, their corporate name, is Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC. And it's very interesting that the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and USA Prepares independently tried to find out the same thing. We used Doublespeak. Now, Rick and I did 2 broadcasts on Doublespeak and 1 rebroadcast. So there were 3 2-hour broadcasts with Rick and me on Genesis Communications Network. 2 were live, 1 was a rebroadcast about Doublespeak. And the Canadian Broadcasting System and USA Prepares were both interested in finding out, do people pay attention? Now, they didn't say that. We did. But they wanted to know if people paid attention to what they were doing. And what they did was they had a woman on the street. There used to be a man on the street, but now they had a woman on the street on camera with a microphone going up to people who were passing by saying, hey, we've got a great app for you. It is an astrology, a daily astrology app, and you can find out what's in store for you absolutely free. All you do is you download this app, agree to the terms and conditions, and you're good to go. So millennials were coming by, and they were very interested in this. Now, their sample size was way smaller than ours because they were using passersby. We were using the radio class that we have. So our sample size was way bigger. But what they found out was that these young people would say, sure, that's great. I'd love to get that free app. So they would download it, and then in order to use it, they'd have to tap on agree to the terms and conditions. And you could see on camera that these young people were scrolling through, and the woman on the street said, are you reading that? Oh, yeah, I'm reading that. Yeah, you can read that fast? Oh, yeah, I am. I'm a speed reader, or, I can read really fast. So they're looking through on this tiny screen, page after terms and conditions. And the terms and conditions said that this app would allow the use of their texts, their tweets, the monitoring of their texts, their tweets, their emails, their audio, their calls, their location, and could turn on the microphone whenever they felt like it. And these people said, yep, good, I'm good to go. Yep, I read it all. It's good to go. And then they found out what the terms and conditions really were, because they were told, hey, not in these words, but, yo, you weren't paying attention. You agree? Oh, I agreed to all that? Oh, my. Oh, geez. Oh, no. So we and the Canadian Broadcasting System both proved the same thing, that people are not paying attention. So I just wanted to share that.
It's called distraction. There are so many different things that are vying for your attention at any given moment. Your belief system, which is what I'm writing about right now in completing the non-local mind. It's almost done. The first 3 chapters have already been proofed. Now listen carefully. We assume that beliefs are true, and they're not. They are true because you choose to believe they're true. That is not the same thing as being true. That's an extremely important point.
You're talking about things like our God in Christianity versus the Viking gods.
Or the pantheon
Odin,
in Greece.
Freya.
That's correct, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, they believe that absolutely they were right. The Christians believe they were right, and they were willing to kill each other over it.
Well, and like when the the Knights Templar came up over the hill in this little sleeping village down below. You know, looks like something out of Christmas Eve. And he said to his horde, "Kill them all. Let God sort out his own."
Yep.
That is where we're at today. Yesterday morning, I went to take my book order, to a single book order, to the post office when this huge truck, I was in my 280Z driving very quietly, very slowly down the street, when he got up on my ass trying to make me to speed up. I put my brake on, he backed off, he came back up again real quick, and this time I stopped in the middle of the road and got out of my car. Now, this is a kid that's 37 years old, 35, 37, that got out of the truck, was going to fight me in the middle of the street because he thought I was going too slow, and I wasn't, by the way. I drive the speed limit. I'm actually a speeder. And what happened next was I said, "Before we engage, I'm calling the police so they can witness this." And he took off. Now, that's what's happening with Gen X individuals. They have no regard to old cars that are priceless. They're not interested in that. They're not interested in personal items anymore. In fact, if you tried to give them something very cool, they will usually decline it because they don't want to clutter. It's a new world out there. And what I did, I was ready to fight this man. He was putting me, my car, and oh, by the way, I saw in the last 3 days, when I see accidents now, I don't see them as a two-car accident. It's usually 3 and 4 because they're all following too closely to each other. And every single one of them is under 45 years old.
How about the accident?
Excuse me, I've had enough. I've had to the point where, as an old man, I'm drawing a line and I'm going to fight. And when my grandson swears at me because I'm just trying to say I sure would be nice if you came to visit me more frequently, this kid is no longer my grandson.
Well, you're not the only one. I don't mean to say it so tersely, but it's happening all over the country.
I understand.
I mean, really, I've seen. I talked about going to Menards a few days ago, and there are these young children punching these bags of birdseed as if let's see how many hits it takes to pop them open, so birdseed goes all over the floor. But where were the parents? The parents didn't care. I see this all the time. I see temper tantrums of young people, 10, 11-year-old, 12-year-old people. They have no judgment. They have no ability to deal with stress. They melt down, and it's always someone else's fault. When we come back, I'll just share with you a story about this guy on a bicycle in the city and what happened to him. It's horrific. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. And here's a case in point. So, Rick, there was this 52-year-old man, and he was riding his bicycle. He had a helmet on, and he came up to a red light, stopped at the red light. Now, this was in Coney Island, New York, just a couple days ago. So he was at this red light, waiting for the light to change so he could ride his bicycle, perfectly legal. He was in the correct lane. He was off to the side. And so the light was red for him, and a young driver, an 18-year-old guy, ran the red light, crashed into a SUV who did have the correct green light to go through the intersection, crashed into him, moves the SUV into and over and on top of the bicyclist. So the SUV that was pushed over by this young driver, this 18-year-old, was in the right. Everybody was right except for this 18-year-old. Was it careless? Absolutely was careless. I can see the image of the red light that he went through. I can see the video of the red light that he went through. And then this stupid kid, this 18-year-old's like, looks like, what happened? Obviously, when these accidents happen, these drivers are operating too fast for conditions, or they're not paying attention, or the equipment is not operating properly, meaning their vehicle. Okay? Most of the time, it's the operator of the vehicle. I remember a very young driver when I lived in Virginia. She had a new car. I looked at it, and I thought it was something really weird about the front of it, so I looked under it, and I said, do you know that your car is all banged up on the bottom? Do you know? Oh, yeah. Well, what happened? Well, I was late for school. This is high school. And I was on a road that I wasn't familiar with, and I ran off the road and into a ditch. Now, she doesn't think it's her fault. It wasn't raining. She was just going too fast. She didn't know how to handle the car. It slid off the road and into a ditch when she was going around a curve that she'd never gone on before. So the answer is, when you don't know that road, you go slower than everybody else, not faster. But then you have these guys like behind you, Rick, who are trying to push you off the road because they think they're supposed to be in front of you. So you're absolutely right. We're living in a very strange world.
I was driving my 280Z, which means different generations respond to me. The older generation, like me, always thumbs up and always giving me extra courtesy because I'm driving a classic. The next generation down think it's cool. Look at Grandpa out there in his new car, his old car, blah, 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 blah. The young kids don't give a darn about any of it. And I'm watching that, and I'm wondering, why are they like this? And then it comes back to the way my daughter raised my grandson. And then I have to look at, what did I do wrong? Well, I didn't do anything wrong because I wasn't allowed to give my daughter the kinds of values that she would have received if she had been under my care as an adult. I was not allowed when my daughter was 4.5 years old. I was blackmailed by the other person that married my ex-wife to not see my daughter because he was jealous of how my ex-wife still felt about me. It's a terrible thing that's happening out there, and all of us are afraid to assume our part in the responsibility of what's happening. But what I am going to do is make certain that my grandchildren learn a lesson from Grandpa. And I remember my daughter wouldn't tell me what happened between my father and her. And my dad apparently loved me so much, he never told me what happened. He only told my sister. And when my sister told me what actually happened, the first thing my daughter said, he's a liar. She's a liar. What? Why would Donna lie?
It's really interesting.
That, I realized that my daughter was no longer my daughter.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Class Dr. Richard Alan Miller's with us. If you'd like to go to his website, richardalanmiller.com, Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Rick, you're talking about young people and their irrationality.
Well, I was getting more personal about my own personal family, and the thing that I'm trying to say to you is that even with me being who I am and how strongly I feel about things, it's out of my control. And I look at families like you, and I'm jealous. Not jealous. I'm impressed and envious and wished I had had a more simple life like you and your family in some ways enjoy. When your mother used to come out, it's Ricky Rocket. I have to. It made me smile. And I look at your son, and I'm impressed. And I wished that the rest of the world was somehow kind of like that, and it's been lost.
It has been lost, and it's the weirdest thing. I don't think there is, and it's the weirdest thing. So we have two boys, and neither of the boys has a long-term girlfriend. One of the boys, our younger boy, is 26. He was dating a girl for 5 years, and it looked like they were going to get married. All of a sudden, he gets dumped. Why does he get dumped? Well, he's the guy that fixes their farm equipment, fixes their fencing, moves their cows, helps them with their hay, fixes their vehicles, does all the things that, boy, to have a son-in-law that can do all that, boy, that'd be kind of neat. And he's a good-looking boy. He's strong. He took third place in the National Karate Championship at Disney Wide World of Sports. So he's got a lot of things going for him. He has a degree in agriculture. He wants to be a farmer. And she dumps him. And why? Well, because after 5 years, she decides that whatever she wants is the most important thing, so it's me first. And then, not only that, it's, I know I'm unreasonable and irrational, and but that's the way I am. And I'm needy, I know that, so that's the way I am, so you're out of here. And so that's him. The other boy is a couple years older, absolutely brilliant historian, absolutely voracious reader, and both boys live on the farm with us, and everybody is now pulling his weight, her weight, Mrs. Finelli's. We're all pulling our own weight to keep the farm afloat. And what I'm thinking is, these guys don't have tattoos, they don't have gauge rings, they don't have implants sticking out of their forehead. They're kind, they're educated, and yet they don't have a significant other, per se. How can that be? And if they had to find one, I don't know if they could. I don't know if they could, because they want someone who doesn't have green hair or gauge rings or has been disfigured.
Yeah, that's it. And tattoos.
Well, okay, well, there's a gal, we can talk about that too. There's a gal who has a Tesla Model 3. And she thought that the coolest thing to do would be to take that plastic key apart, get the electronics out of it, and go to a tattoo artist and have that inserted in her wrist. So she's got green hair. She's got all the colors of the rainbow. She's a pretty girl, but she's lost her mind. So now she can get into her Tesla because her key is in her wrist. So, literally green hair. And when I say green, I don't mean like the color of grass. I'm talking about...
It's all cool. Everybody wants identification and having uniqueness, so I'm going to wear my pants below my balls, that kind of thing. But it's still, there's something else going on here. And the concern I have is that if this is my family, and I am supposed to be a model, I'm a moral man, and yet what has happened?
Okay, if you talk with other parents about your age, and they have millennial type children, you'll find that a number of them, I've heard this from them, that their children will call them up and not say, "Hey mom, hey dad, I just called to say hi, check in, let you know that I haven't talked to you since yesterday. Everything's good. How are you, mom? How are you, dad?" They don't do that. They call, and the first thing out of their mouth is what they want. I want you to do whatever. That's what I'm hearing from parents. Their children do exactly what you said. The children are cursing them out. They're yelling at them. It's elder abuse. It's adult abuse. It's senior abuse. And the parents don't deserve this. The parents have tried to do the right thing, but I think something happened right around the time that these children went to school. And then it progressed, and if they went to college, it got enhanced. And these children are absolutely out of control. And that's why if you look, you'll see that the drug abuse is out of control. Alcoholism is out of control. And what are these people trying to say by having four-letter words tattooed on their forehead, as if they're going to be in face-to-face customer service, and they're telling the customer what they think of them by what's tattooed on their forehead? Really? They've lost their minds. You're right. They want to be individuals. They want to have that identity, and they want to make sure that people like them. Well, they're not doing it the right way because I don't like them. I don't want anything to do with them. I really don't. And I don't want to go to a medical office with someone who has tattoos. If they have risky behavior, I'm not interested in being anywhere near them. Because if they're so stupid that they'll do that to themselves, meaning tattoos and branding and whatever else they do, and have Alexa in their homes, I don't want to be around them. But they have become dependent on the smartphones. And that was probably one of the... Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, I don't think they originally envisioned that they would be designing the forces that would destroy society. But that's what they did. And the cell phones are like the worst thing that I can think of. And I don't have...
Well, this new technology. Yesterday, I no longer, when somebody wants to meet me in my town, I no longer invite them to my home first. What I do is I meet them somewhere else to even see if this is someone I want to know. Now, I did that yesterday, and I met this man. He's in his 50s. He's a Mexican, Spanish. He came from Mexico, and a hard worker, knows everybody in town, and is an extremely passionate individual regarding as a true seeker. He's not a Christian, and he's a Christian, but he's not a Christian. He's kind of like me in that sense of it, where he has questions about the Catholic Church and the evolution of our so-called Bible. And the kid, I call him a kid, but he's in his 50s, had politeness that you don't find anymore. Like, I'm gonna have to break this off. I know it's interesting, but I need to go get some dinner. He was immediately aware of that. And the problem is, I'm changing, and I don't like whom I'm becoming, where I look back at my life, and I was always open and trusting until they did something incorrect. And then it was fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And I was shame on me a lot, where I gave a person a second choice. I remember when my camera was stolen and I found it in a pawn shop, and it was because the guy that was working for me needed the money. He wasn't being a flake. He was not being able to meet his needs, and he stole as a result. And what I did is I did not press charges. And I remember when law enforcement that was involved with it was impressed with me in trying to help this man become a better person. The thing is, law enforcement now doesn't even care about that part. Now, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
This is today. And
Rick, I've become
at how far we've come in law enforcement and what it is today compared to what it used to be.
I have become the same type of person as you. I used to be always willing to help. Now I am not willing to help, and I said that publicly. And our class is probably thinking, Finelli's lost his mind. He's not willing to help. No, I'm not willing to help because people show up at our farm and they tell me what's going to happen. They have lost their minds. People don't come over to my property and tell me what I'm going to do. Absolutely not. I don't have a job. It's like the trolls would say, hey, you're not talking about this or you're not talking about that, and you're wasting our time, Finelli. Really? I'm wasting their time. I give up 4 hours a day, minimum, 7 days a week to be on the air. And they're telling me what I have to do? I'm a volunteer. I don't have to do anything. I don't have a job. The only thing I have to do is to keep the IRS off my back and keep the state and county off my back. That's all I have to
taxes,
do.
there you are.
That's all I have to do. Nothing else. And yet they're telling me what they think I should do. And I even get threats by people who are telling me they demand that I sell our farm, our family farm that took 4 generations to build. They demand reparations. And all I can say is, come and get it. Come and get it. I'm looking forward to meeting these parasites. So I see every day that I go from the farm to Springfield, Missouri. Now, I don't do it every day, but every day that I do go, I am cut off. I'm given the finger. Someone is tailgating me, trying to push me off the road. Exactly
or make you go
what
faster.
You said. Exactly what, and I'm not going to go faster. I am not going to let someone who's behind me tell me that I am going to break the law or put other people at risk by going faster than I think I should. I'm the pilot of my vehicle. I'm the captain of my ship. They are not. And if there's an accident, if they cause me to have an accident, I know what's going to happen. They're just going to leave. They're going to leave, laugh. Then I had an accident.
Like that guy that wanted to hurt me, but when I started calling the police, he split. You know, they don't want to assume responsibility. And when I say they, it's not everyone, but it is more and more, not less and less. And as I see it, it's a shame.
There was a group of millennials, and now I'm thinking they were in their 30-plus age, and they were in a vacant house near our farm. And I was going down the road, and I saw their vehicle, and their truck door was open, and they were invading this house. And I got out of my truck, and I was screaming at them, "Get out, get out, get out, get out." And finally, they're looking around like, "What's this all about?" And I said, "Get out." And so I acted like I had a cell phone in my hand, and I said, "Here's their license number." So there were these invaders, these marauders, these robbers in this vacant house near our farm. And I was going by, and they looked like they were going to help themselves to whatever was in it. And so I yelled at them. I screamed at them. I couldn't see how many there were at first, but I yelled from the road, "Get out, get out, get out." And then they stuck their heads out, and they're wondering what's going on. And I told them, "Get out." And they started asking me questions. I said, "Get out, get out." And then I acted like I was making a cell phone call. I said, "Here's the license number, and here's where we are, and here's where they are." And those guys decided to take off before it escalated from there.
Yeah, it's a bunch of no accountability.
Yeah. So, Rick, there's an article that I'd like to share with you, and I think this has something to do with what the problem is. And this is studyfinds.org, and they say that popular ADHD drugs like Ritalin and Concerta may change the structure of children's brains. And what they say is, according to the CDC, 5.2% of all American children between the ages of 2 and 17 are currently taking ADHD medicine. And they're going to take it well into adulthood. And what they're finding out is, golly, that this is affecting the development of the brain. So they're taking this drug to slow these children down, and lo and behold, it's actually working, and it causes permanent brain damage. That's my term for it. But it has an impact on the white matter of the brain. So here we have a drug that we give it to these children, or I should say they give it to those children, and the children take it, and it really slows them down, and they become good little children in class. So they just sit there. And then they find out that, wow, it's a permanent effect. So why would we do that? Why would we think that any drug is only going to have a temporary effect? Why would we think that? But that's what we do. We think it's just temporary, for a short time until we have to take it again. So, parents, grandparents, Ritalin, and that's another indicator that people can't pay attention. The children can't pay attention. Now, it used to be when I was in elementary school in the 1950s and the 1960s, if someone didn't pay attention, they said, well, he's got ants in his pants, and he's just, it's kind of squirms, and he's thinking about other things. But it wasn't everybody. Now it seems to be a lot of people have this problem. But we were thinking about other things, more important things. Now, children can't stay on task for anything. Aren't you seeing that, Rick?
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of things that I don't want to see anymore. And what it's doing is it's changing me. And I really liked who I was. I don't want to change. I liked being who I was. However, I can't, because if I do, I'm going to be hurt. I'm going to be robbed, spindled, mutilated, or otherwise folded. And so it's a survival thing, IQ, and how quickly I'm having to adapt because the world is changing.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we don't have any more expos. And that's why we're not going to have any more expos. Because people made demands of me I couldn't believe. I had to pay for their tickets. I had to do all kinds of things that no one else did, but yet I did them to make it better.
Vincent, you no longer have to do lap dances for me. I absolve you of that.
So, well, Rick, a woman, a middle-aged woman came up to me. You were at this expo, and it was in Lebanon, Missouri, and she said, are you in charge here? And I said, how can I help you? And I'm paraphrasing. And she said, bags. I said, bags. What, bags? She said, yeah, your exhibitors aren't handing out bags. You don't have bags for us to carry out the things that we bought. And I said, ma'am, this is a preparedness expo. If you wanted a bag, you should have brought one.
Prepared. Yeah.
Then I got a woman came up to me and said,
"That's a good response, Vincent. That was wonderful."
Well, okay. Well, the next one is much worse. A woman came up to me, middle-aged gal, and she said, "Do you know how far it is from the parking lot to this exhibit hall?" And I said, "Yeah, my car's right out there." And she said, "You need to have a shuttle here to bring us from the parking lot into the exhibit hall." And I said, "Ma'am, if you can't make it from the parking lot to the exhibit hall, you're not going to make it."
How is she going to be shuttled around to all the different vendors?
Well, I told her if she can't walk from her vehicle to the exhibit hall, she's not going to survive anyway. That's what I told her. Absolutely frank as can be. That's what I told her. So I'm not doing expos anymore. I'm not doing meetups anymore. I'm not paying for people's dinners anymore. I mean, there's too many of them. They all have their hands out. Gimme. Well, why don't you guys work for it the way I did? Let's try that. See how that works. It's a lot harder, but that's what we did. Dr. Richard Allen Miller and I'll be right back. And we're going to talk about something really practical. Hour number 2 of the USA Prepares. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us, physicist. Website, richardallenmiller.com. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Rick, before we get into basement flooding, I wanted to mention something. I get a number of calls here at the farmhouse, especially on the weekends. And we have some very loyal class members, one of whom happens to be a peace officer, a policeman. Would you believe that? We actually have a policeman who listens to USA Prepares every day. Not my words, his words. I've invited him to come on the air with me. He'd prefer not to do that, but he does listen every day. And he had a suggestion for you, Rick Miller. And what he said was, why don't you and Rick, meaning me and you, Rick, go in business and offer a garden supplement to encourage the growth of microbes to do the heavy lifting and release the minerals that are necessary in our soil for healthy plants to grow and for us to be healthier by eating those plants in our garden. So that's what he suggested that we do.
Exceptional recommendation. That's a very good for him.
Okay. So if you're interested, if you're interested in doing that, you can develop the science. We can make it. We can test it here on the farm. We can have members of our class test it, and then we can offer it as a product right here. So, a scientific product aimed at those who want to prepare.
What I would like to offer first is a 1/3 chicken manure, 1/3 rabbit manure, and 1/3 worm casing supplement for the soil. That combination right there from rabbits, chickens, and worm casings is all that we will need to grow anything in outer space. Now you put that on your soil and watch what happens next with each habitat. And it's a simple thing. I need a bunch of chicken, rabbit, manure, and worm casings. And if you package that in 50-pound sacks, I think that could be the supplement of the year. That's all the inorganic salts necessary for any kind of plant in outer space. That formula alone is what we discovered at Lunar Base Alpha 1 as the Boeing company working hydroponic systems that later became the Kent Space Center. And that was Art Pilgrim that did that, and at the time I was dating his daughter, Vicky. And that's one of the things we discovered was just that simple formula without having to introduce mycorrhizae or mycelium or any of the other ingredients that are already in the soil to make that thing happen. And each habitat is different, but you do those three ingredients and you have all the inorganic salts necessary to grow anything in outer space. Imagine what that'll do on Earth.
Well, if you're interested in trying it, let me know. And
I'm interested in doing it. I think it's the formula of the century.
Okay. All right. We can talk about that off air, and we'll see if we can pursue this class.
I met a woman, her name is Grace, that writes for teenforsafety.com. And this woman sent me an article that she'd like to have me post on my website because she thinks that the kids she writes for will want this information. And what she wrote was a thing called Basement Guide. And there's a whole series that they've done, but hers is called Flooded Basement, what to do under Basement Guide. And you can find that at basementguides.com/flooding. And this article that she wrote is exceptional. And this article covers everybody, including urban and rural communities. My basement is flooded. What should I do? Do not immediately just get into the water in the basement and attempt to remove it. That's her first advice. Although that makes sense as an initial reaction to the problem, it is also potentially life-threatening. The basement flooding could have been risen over electrical outlets, sending an electrical charge throughout the water. In this case, professional help is usually always the best direction to go. And what she does is she goes down through this, in this article, cleaning a flooded basement, what to do. And there's basic steps, 1, 2, 3, with drawings. It's an exceptional article. And I want to see kinds of articles on practical, what do you do when this happens? And guess what? I go to the bottom of that page and the sitemap, and it's unbelievable. And I'm going to go to the sitemap right now because that sitemap, she has about us, contact us, sitemap, and privacy policy. And the sitemap starts out about Archaeology 101, basement home and energy efficient guide, bugs and pests, crawl spaces, drywall, flooding, flooring, foundation crack repair, hurricane safety guide, leak paint removal, leak calculator, mold. Now, all of these different topics have been so well researched and written and done as a practical guide that for me, I'm going to have a guest place where I post some of these articles because for me, they're even better written than what I would have done. I'm more basic, but I can tell you something, and everybody needs to hear this. Jet Propulsion Laboratory has announced to the world that this winter is going to be the coldest and heaviest, hardest winter in recorded history. Now, that's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Others are saying it, including NASA, right now. And Jet Propulsion Laboratory has gone further to say by the year 2024, there will be places in Canada that are no longer habitable. What does that mean? It means that everything that USA Prepares has suggested is about to happen is now happening. It's right now. And if you don't heed my words, which is fine, I'm just another doom and gloomer. I'm your science officer. I'm Spock. I'm second in command. What I'm trying to, I don't want to be the boss. I don't really want to tell you what you should do. What I'm going to do is recommend what I think we should be doing now, sir.
Rick, in this
Vincent,
article,
you're Captain Kirk.
I'm just another guy.
Yeah, but you're, in that sense of it, a lot of people are keying off what you're doing with your farm, your family, your moral codes of ethics, your other kinds of things that you're trying to do to prepare your family for survival. And when I'm second in command, I would be remiss if I did not tell you, like, for example, how many of you ever remember having a summer like we just did?
And then I go to the next level.
How are you sleeping every night? How is your sleep cycle working for you? And mine is telling me something's wrong. Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing that from in all of my biorhythms. All of my different cycles inside my body are having trouble with restful sleep. I'm not getting the kinds of sleep, even though I take the time and nap and do the rest of it, not take drugs, da-da-da-da-da. Something else is going on.
Mm-hmm. Rick, this article, basementguides.com/flooding, talks about something very important, and it's something that so few people pay attention to, and that is there's an area on this page about the location of your home. And we've talked about this, like, water runs downhill. So don't get a home that's below the dam. Don't do that. Don't get a home where the water runs from everyone else into your basement. Don't do that. Now, of course, bottomland, until it was damaged with pollutants, was great for growing. But now, I'm not so sure I'd want bottomland where everybody's insecticides has run off into it. I chose, with Mrs. Finelli, a farm that is on top of a hill. Water runs down from our farm to other places, and that's the way we like it. So we don't have to worry about things like basement flooding. And when you mentioned electricity, what came to my mind is every basement I've ever seen that I've been in, other people's basements, and they have equipment. They've got like a dehumidifier. It's plugged in. Where's the dehumidifier? It's on the floor. Where's the power cord? Well, it's on an extension cord. Where's that? It's on the floor. So if that basement floods, there's an outlet that may be above the flooding level, but the connection to the dehumidifier is on the floor, which means that that water in the basement has been energized by that extension cord. Now, how many basements have breaker panels and fuse boxes? Lots of them. Because for some reason, that's where a lot of the building contractors put the breaker panels in the basement. Why? I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me because you can't get to it easily. I'd rather have a breaker panel where I can get to it. And why are outlets at 12 inches off the floor in the basement? Makes no sense to me. Why not have them a minimum of 2 feet? Why not have a drain, and the term in Missouri is daylights, so the drain in the basement daylights out to a lower area so that if you do get flooding, automatically the water goes down the drain because your basement floor is sloped in such a way that the water will run right out to an opening through 4-inch drain pipe to an area that's lower than your basement. Why not? How often does that happen? Hardly ever. Why? I don't know. I guess carelessness, laziness, lack of attention to detail. But that's what we do. That's how we build. We make sure that if we have a basement, it won't flood. And we make sure that the electrical circuits don't have outlets that will get flooded. And all you have to do is pay attention to that. Rick, have you heard the term grinder pump, Grinder pump? It's a pump that goes in the basement. Have you ever had any experience with that?
No, my home up in Seattle had a sump pump. Mm-hmm. And we had flooding. Seattle would, once in a while, have serious heavy rain, and the runoff would not allow it to pump fast enough, and it would flood the basement. I think in the 20 years, I think there was a flooding once or twice.
Okay.
And what we had to do to clean the mold, because black mold is next, and if it's wood down there, you have a serious black mold problem that will happen next, and then the home can be condemned.
And here's a really silly design, and this happens, class. There's a pump design called a grinder pump, Grinder. So let's say you have a basement, and let's say you have, when the house was constructed, the builder put in a toilet in the basement, but the sewer pipe is higher in height than the toilet. So what do? Well, you have this pump, so when you flush the toilet, it goes into this tank below the basement floor. And when the tank has a float in it, a float switch, that when the tank gets to such a height that it needs to be pumped out, the pump comes on, and it pumps out with a grinder the sewage, the toilet paper, and all that. It grinds it up and sends it up into the sewer pipe. Well, if you have a design like that, it's really kind of neat because you're going to be the first one to know if the sewage system backs up. You get to know first because your basement gets to flood first with sewage. It's insanity, but that's what happens. And it gets approved. It gets approved by the building inspector. Yeah, what a great, we're going to have to put a grinder pump in so that you can pump your sewage up. Now, do those pumps ever fail? Absolutely, they fail. How often? Between 10 and 15 years. How much do they cost? About $1,000 by the time you get someone to put one in for you. $1,000 every 10 or 15 years. So it's an expensive proposition. It's silly because everybody knows water runs downhill, and it doesn't take any of your energy to make water run downhill. And these are the kinds of things that you can learn on this basementguides.com/flooding page.
Isn't that well written, the way she did it? Simplistic and straightforward. And all the other articles are similarly prepared, and there is now a guide, direction of information. Now, the bad news is none of it's going to be available if the grid goes down. Mm-hmm. And the grid is going to go down. So now what do?
And we're putting people who are not knowledgeable in charge of these corporations that supply electricity to our homes. We are putting, literally, I couldn't believe this.
Well, it's like the phone and the doublespeak that we did. Nobody's listening, nobody's paying attention, and watch what happens next.
Rick, I called, I'm running, at the end of this month, I'll be on stage in front of a few thousand people, explaining why I should be a director of the electric cooperative called Guineith Electric. And they have a committee, and the committee was chosen by the board.
Why would anybody want someone like you in charge? You have the drive to want to do it right. Who else is possibly interested in doing that other than for a paycheck?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you what happened. So they have a committee. Now, the committee is selected by the board of directors. So the board establishes a committee, and the committee is to find people to run against the people on the board, which, obviously, how does that work? Well, I contacted the CEO of Guineith Electric Cooperative, and I said, I want to talk to the person who is the committee chair before they select the candidates for the board of directors. I'm going to tell you what happened when we come back, and this will prove to you what's really wrong with America today. This will absolutely prove it to you. We'll be right back with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and I have an apology to make, class. So I have a call screen in front of me. I have multiple computer screens, and one of them is a call screen. It has all the telephone lines of all the callers that call into Genesis Communications Network Studio 3. And I've been watching it diligently during the broadcast, and no calls, no calls, no calls. Well, what happened was my call screen locked up. The internet went down, and the call screen stayed clear. There were no calls showing, so Steve Elkins in Florida has been waiting for almost a half an hour. My apologies, Steve. I'm really sorry, but I didn't see it. I reset the computer, and there we go. We're good.
You are forgiven. Not a forgiven. No, I just called in. I love your show. I love the show. It's an excellent show, and I definitely promote it everywhere I go. I tell you, you got to check out Vincent. He's got some great hosts. Also, to you, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. I gotta love you and your respect and your openness to be not politically correct. You're much like myself. I call a spade, and your commentary is much appreciated. We need more hosts, more instructors like that who don't soft pedal on the issues. And I just got to say, you guys are well matched. You have some good synergy there going, and keep it up. Vincent, excellent with the response quips to those who are not prepared, wanting handbags and shuttle service to here and there. I mean, these people don't get it. They're not prepared. And these are probably the same people that don't have jumper cables in their trunk of their car, the same people that will probably be on the rooftops of their houses asking somebody to risk their life to save them. Being prepared is a personal duty. It is your honor, your duty to have a plan in place to take care of yourself and your family's needs. And evidently these two people who ask these dumb questions are not in that category. But again,
I've got a response. I've got a response to that, Steve Elkins. Steve has a broadcast on the weekend on Republic Broadcasting Network. He's an instructor here at USA Prepares, and he's been to the farm. Our son was in high school. He was homeschooled, but he wanted to try the public training camp. And one of his fellow classmates had a vehicle, and the water pump failed. And it was leaking, and she was stuck. So our son said, well, I'll put another one in for you. We'll just go to the auto parts store in town. We'll get one, and we'll just change it right here. And she didn't have the money for it. She didn't have the tools for it. So he lent her the money, bought the part, put the water pump in, and within an hour and a half or so, she was all fixed up, and she was good to go. And she paid him back for it. He didn't charge for labor, but, just for the part. And one of the teachers happened to notice our son and his attitude, and they had a very special award for only a very few students. And those were students who teachers saw doing things that were exceptional, out of the ordinary, things that most people don't do. And he was seen many times doing things like this, not with his hand out, not saying you owe me, just doing it because it was the right thing to do. And so Mrs. Finelli and I were invited to a dinner that was cooked by the chef students, those who were in the culinary experience at the high school, to honor just a very few students who were seen doing things that were above and beyond. So I think the thing is, just do things that you need to do and don't expect to be rewarded. And it's noticed. It's noticed. So I just wanted to share that. And you met our son, both of our boys.
Fine young men. Fine young men. You and Sandy have done a great job raising your kids. I only met the two, but fine men. Fine men.
Well, thank you. Thank you,
I appreciate
Steve.
that. I mean, I certainly mean that. I actually had a chance to talk to both of them, and both are very unique and different in many ways. And I was just amazed. I love talking to intelligent young men and young teens. I love when I find intelligent people to converse with. And your sons are definitely in that category, no doubt about it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, that's it for me, guys. You got 20 more minutes to go. Inform some more people.
Thank you so much, Steve Elkins.
You got it. Bye.
So, Rick, I had mentioned that I was running for the board, and I...
You know what I like about Florida?
What's that?
The fetish bars. Anything goes. Oh, that's Indiana Jones. Yeah, that's what Florida's about.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me share this.
That did psychedelic monographs and essays. He was my dearest friend. He lived in Boca, and when I'd go visit him, he'd take me to the different fetish bars. And one night, we went to a dance club where Gabriel Roth was dancing, and I got to meet, what was her name? She was a young dancer under it, and I fell in love and all of that. This was a long time ago. And what happened next was Gabriel Roth was into Serpentine, by the way, was the one that was her name, Serpentine. She was into freeform dance. And what happened was I allowed myself to go, and I started doing Tai Chi, and they made a movie where I'm in that movie. I didn't know it at the time. You go back, you'll find back in the 80s, there's some guy in these fetish bars doing Tai Chi as a freeform dance. And they filmed me on that. But it's Gabriel Roth, and before her, it was Kate Bush. And before Kate Bush, it was, he did, not McFarlane, it was Kenneth Anger. Kenneth Anger did dance form in the early 40s and 50s, part of the Aleister Crowell movement with Kenneth Anger. I got to meet Kenneth Anger and those people doing radical forms of dance, and I got involved with what movement is about with breath control. That's where I've been writing about that in my newest book as well, on the non-local mind, how breath and how important breathing is in the way you take in and remember things. And if you will note yourself, if you will witness how you're breathing when certain events are occurring, realize the significance, because it's breath that controls your perception of time.
Yeah, I've studied a little bit of movement and breath control as well, and it's when I'm behind the trigger.
Yeah, there it is. The shoot 'em ups. There you go. That's what we're going to do, shoot 'em ups.
So, Rick, let me share this with you and our
That's
class.
wonderful.
So we we're going to have this election, this selection of the board of directors at the Electric Cooperative at the end of this month. On the 23rd, I'll be on stage. So, class, we're going to be in Lebanon, Missouri, at the Cowan Civic Center. I will be there. I'll be the guy that the police are hauling off. But the interesting thing,
they're going to arrest you in stage.
Well, they have an attorney who'll be right to my left with a stopwatch to allow me to speak for 2 minutes. And if he can't gain control of me, there will be the CEO and the vice presidents with two-way radios and earbuds and microphones, and they will say, get him. He's the guy over there on stage at the microphone right now. Arrest him right now. Haul him off. So they're all prepared for that. But here's what I wanted to share. So there's a committee to select people to run against the board. Now, the board establishes this committee, and they put this gal in charge of the committee. And so I wanted to call this committee, and I wanted to speak before the committee and let them know that, hey, guys, this is the third time I'm running. No one has ever run 3 times in a row, nominated from the membership, and you guys select people to run. I just want you to let you know I'm going to run again. And they knew that. But I was only able to communicate with the committee chairperson after they made their selection. They made their selection very quickly who was going to run as nominees from the nominating committee. Well, I said, so what is your selection criteria? And she said, well, we want to give everybody a chance. We want to give anyone who wants to run, we want to give them a chance to be on the board of directors. And I said, well, how's that working? So I think we're doing a real good job. Now, of course, I'm paraphrasing. And I said, well, remember the time that you had a gal who was a cashier at Walmart, and you wanted her to be on the board of directors, and she didn't even show up to give a presentation? You remember that? So you feel good about that? So literally, what this committee does is they find people who they think they can, this is my opinion, that they can mold and make the board, if they ever get elected, do whatever they want these board members to do.
Gerrymandering, a different kind, but nonetheless.
Yeah. So I said, so why didn't you talk to me? She said I was, pretty aggressive. So of course I'm aggressive. You guys give me 2 minutes to be on stage, and you want me to talk about my family and my religion and our children and how long I've lived here, and then by the time I'm done with that, I can't say anything else, and it's time's up, and go to the next candidate. Of course I'm aggressive. And so they think that I'm a little too aggressive to be on the board of directors. So they want anybody.
They do, huh?
Yes, and that's
what about the voters?
Well, the problem is when you walk into, they've turned the annual board of directors meeting into a circus. It's at the same civic center that you and I and USA Preparedness was at in Lebanon, Missouri. It's filled up. The bleachers are filled up. They've got seats all over. There's thousands of people there, and they have a small stage, and they give away prizes and gifts and TVs.
A circus.
And it is a circus. And everybody gets a hot dog or 2 or 5 or as many. And these aren't really good hot dogs. These are fish bait. And you get a little bag of potato chips and a can of soda or a water or and a
something from Upton Sinclair, made with human parts. Real Girl Scouts.
Right. So that's what you get. You get fish bait on a bun, and you get a little packet of mustard and ketchup and a cookie and all this trash that gets thrown up because everybody gets it in these to-go
Do they give out free
boxes.
bags?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Carry all your loot in?
Well, you ought to see it. It really is a circus. At the end of the evening, they have some extra hot dogs left over, and there are people that are carrying them, and they've got their 2 hands grasping these containers at their belt level, and then they're holding this stack with their chin walking out the door. That's what this has become. This is the annual board of directors meeting of Laclede Electric, and they tell the membership, you are the owners of this corporation, which is absolutely bogus, and I can prove it, and I'm going to because I've said, well, since I sent an email to the CEO, I said, since I'm an owner of this corporation, How much are we paying you and your vice presidents? And I get an email that says, I'm not going to tell you. So I say, how many lawsuits are we involved in? I'm not going to tell you. So I'm the owner of the corporation, so they say publicly, but I can't find out how many lawsuits we're engaged in, how much we pay or compensate the people. And as an owner of the corporation, they only give me 2 minutes to make my case. But yet they've got a DJ and a band, and they've got it's a carnival. And that's what's wrong with America. People are being bribed with hot dogs. That's how dumb we are. We'll be right back. So, Rick, did you hear what I said about this neurostimulation?
I'm sorry. Say again about neurostimulation.
Okay. I guess my microphone wasn't potted up at the network. Okay, so there's 6 morbidly obese people who have agreed to take part in a clinical trial of a brain chip that zaps them whenever they think about food. So they think about Doritos, bang, they get hit with a shock. It's like, oh, better not think about Doritos anymore.
What happens when he says, don't worry, we'll make more?
Yeah, right, right.
Jay Leno, I
can you imagine,
it, man? You just
can you imagine? Can you imagine that we have gotten to the point where we've got to shock ourselves because we can't control that. We can't control what we eat. We just, man, unbelievable.
I know.
Robert in Kansas.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Robert in Kansas, welcome.
Hey, Vincent, thank you. I wanted to say that I really appreciate Dr. Miller's personal example he gave with his family, some stuff going on. And I can tell you, Dr. Miller, you're not alone. That is, I think, what we're facing in our society, these manifestations of all these issues that you guys talk about. A lot of it has to do with the disillusion of the family. And this is really what it is. It's kids without fathers. And the root of our problem really is that women were given rights, and they now use those rights in a way that is literally destroying our society. And it's just what happens to almost every civilization that does that. That you eventually you give women rights, and they vote away any sort of sovereignty that people have, and they end up killing their kids, and you get gay marriage, and you get transgendered kids, and you just get all this stuff, and it's because the women aren't supposed to be leading anything, and when you let them do it, this is what happens. And you see society falling apart because of it. A woman can just dissolve a family, a marriage, because she had a bad day, and it's destroying us. It really is.
Thank you for your support, by the way.
I was listening to, I couldn't believe it. I was listening to National Public Radio, and they've got this gal on there. She's a homo. And she seems to interview other homos and transgender people. And I just happened to tune across the dial. And normally I don't listen to the radio, and I've done it twice now in the last couple of weeks. And so there was this very articulate, very well-spoken woman. And then she describes how she was a sex worker starting around 15 years old. And then she talks about how she used the money from being a prostitute to pay for her trans. So then you find out that, well, she's really a he, and he was kind of a feminine guy when he was growing up. So the father decided, let's try football, and let's try to make a man out of this young effeminate guy. Ultimately, what happened, and then you find out that she's black. So does she sound black? No. Does she sound like these, those, and them guys? No. She is absolutely as articulate as could be, and she is talking about the ultimate in twisted perversion, changing your sex, getting a plumbing reorganization, removing plumbing, inserting plumbing. That's what's going on in National Public Radio. Your tax dollars, class, are paying for this tripe. But they do an excellent job in making it seem like, well, this is normal. This is normal to be a transsexual. Absolutely normal. And she talked about he. It is a he. But
You see, this is a confusion on what is called androgyny, the marriage of your inner self with your external self. And June Singer has written an exceptional book. I just bought a new book from her called Boundaries of the Soul. But her first book was Androgyny, and it's quite different than gayness or sex change. Has nothing to do with that. And the two paths to God are the hermit or the lovers. You either do it androgynously, or you have a reflected mate in the external world that reflects that perfect woman inside you.